Imagine you're in a white room, but there's no exit, and you reside in this room not alone, but with a single other person. Picture someone you have strong negative feelings towards. I think we all have someone like that in our lives. Now envision yourself being forced to live with that person, until death do you part. Would you grow to love them, or to hate them even more? Would you begin to understand their perspective, or be further repulsed by it with each passing day? David Fincher gives us this scenario in 2014 in Gone Girl, adapted from the thriller novel written by Gillian Flynn. It's a question I've asked myself since I first saw that final scene, a question built on the debates of what marriage entails and how much one should and can endure in a relationship. Can Nick and Amy love each other after the events of Gone Girl? What are the factors responsible for the existence of love? That's a tricky question, right? Those variables are endless, and millions upon millions of choices must be taken into account for the reasons why something might work and when something doesn't. But there is a precondition in every one of those possibilities. I want to say it starts with, in most cases, two people with the desire to fulfill a loneliness, a need to connect with another person on a deeper level in hopes to better themselves and the quality of their lives. This then in turn leads to an action, the subconscious or conscious effort to put ourselves in new situations, to see new places, to meet new people, to find someone to live out the rest of your life with. For Amy Elliott, this is a party in New York, where she meets a handsome, charming boy by the name of Nick Dunn, a shining star looking to rescue Amy from the scrutiny of her best-selling book writer parents, who take inspiration from their daughter to create a better, revitalized Amy in their fictional stories. This sets up Amy very well. We see that Amy is forced to stare at a reflection of who her parents want her to be, constantly reminded of the fatal flaw that she is only human. But Amy, while being the victim of endless dissection, has taken those same eagle-eye traits and put them onto the people around her life. This is understandable. History in some ways always repeats itself, never fully separating ourselves from the cynical attributes we've observed our whole lives. So Amy Elliott, like any other human being, craves human connection, and Nick Dunn gives her that. He makes her feel wanted and needed, satisfying Amy's desire for companionship, hence the transformation into Amy Dunn. This is what we require in an apt environment for love to grow. But we also need our other half. Nick Dunn is, well, we have to give him the same benefit of the doubt. We have to assume that Nick pursues Amy for the same reasons, to fulfill a loneliness inside him. Nick is trying to be someone that women like Amy would find likable. In his wit, his charm, his intelligence, Nick acts the way he does for the root motivation to be with someone. It's universal, but in the hopes that he sweeps them off their feet with his charisma, he then slowly declines into who he really is. And in the face of hardship, he becomes a person that Amy didn't decide to marry. Nick actually expects Amy to love him unconditionally, when that same treatment is not given in return. He isolates himself to battle issues that stem from his insecurity, his humility in not being able to provide for his wife. Instead, his wife provides for him. These acts of kindness, no, really of marriage, chip away at his masculinity, the fixed perception that the husband must take care of his wife. These defense mechanisms render Nick an animal in a cage, feeling trapped and with a loss of recognition. So let's go back. Two people with the desire to fulfill loneliness. And in a small window of time, both these parties shine light on a rose so it blooms love. But one side is discouraged, which leaves the other with a choice: to leave the dying flower in hopes of finding a new one, or to believe that the rose is worth saving. Who is Amy Dunn? It's a question that we never ask ourselves in the entirety of Gone Girl, because Amy says it loud and proud in her anecdotes, and then to the world. After 5 years of marriage, Amy is done with Nick. After neglect, infidelity, and finally abuse, Amy finds the resolve to ruin Nick's reputation with the end of her life. Nick will be framed for murder, and Amy will be a martyr for all the other abused, unwanted, inconvenient women of the world. Wedged between a terrifyingly cunning and epic comeback for Amy, it may be glossed over by the audience of what Amy's true stance on love is, and consequently what her choice is on the fate of the rose. Amy didn't call it work in the beginning, but that's when it was easy. But it's never easy forever, that's what they always say. That marriage is built on practice and spent energy, on blood, on sweat, on tears. You might not want to do it, but you have to. It's part of the promise you made when you said your vows, the same vows that are skipped over in the movie. Amy has learned that to love and to be loved, you have to be an extension of who you really are. You have to pretend to be someone else for that person. That rose, it cannot grow any further, not unless both parties, both Amy and Nick, find a reason for it to grow. In a desperate plea to get Amy back home, Nick goes on live television and proves his love to Amy, wishing that she would just fall back into his loving arms. It's in this that Amy is truly amazed at Nick. A man that she thought was gone has come back, if only for a moment, if only to make a play. So why does this work? And does it really work? It succeeds in the sense that Amy will come back home, and in Nick's last bout, she sees that he's capable of her principle of love, and changing who you are for another person. That's exactly what Nick does, and knows how to do, regardless if he was sincere or not. Amy has fallen in love all over again, and this rose can rebloom. Amy returns, with a plan to save her marriage, but also with blood on her hands. That same fear she wrote about in her diary was one that became a reality, not for her, but for Nick, petrified of his own wife. Nick cannot leave, because the media would tear him apart. The survivor Amy would be all alone. Well, not completely. She'd have her soon-to-be newborn child. Nick is the one forced to change. In such a crazy situation, he's pushed into a cage, like an animal. But there is always a choice, maybe not one we see right away. Nick can choose to love or hate his wife. Two people with the desire to fulfill loneliness. That's all you need. And Nick speaks without words when he tells Margot that Amy's pregnant. You wanna stay. It's one line that tells us Nick is starting to understand what Amy has been trying to say. And all the pain and suffering is the definition of marriage. It's work. And Nick can't run from his job anymore. Literally. It feels as though Amy is answering a question of, when does a person really like themselves? In moments when they are not who they really are. But just like never being able to completely avoid the habits of our parents, there are parts of us in all our facades. Amy shows her hunger for victory, even in the most faraway identities. She likes to win, and she has won the most high-stake game of life there is. The worst parts of Nick are in his best days, and Nick may lose himself in beer and video games from time to time. But Nick and Amy both share a common goal: to be with someone. It's universal, and now it is no longer just for them, but for their baby. When you get into the topic of love, things get tricky. It's so complicated that people come to thousands of their own conclusions on relationships and if it meets their approval of how they see what love to really be. Truth is, it's hard to really say what happens between Nick and Amy Dunn from here on out, and with the constant media coverage, they may never live a normal life again. The Dunns are in a box, a white room with no exit, but I believe they do have what it takes for that same love to come back. It will take dedication, and it will take understanding and communication. But most of all, it will take a little make-believe, a pretending to be someone you are not. And even in the lapses where you see yourself, your true self, you have to separate that from the person you want to be, to find diligence and put on a mask of the best version of you for them.